Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. My name is Drageth, and today I want to take some time to talk about a topic that is of particular interest to me. Namely, with the release of Elder Scrolls Online recently, the contrast between the story in Elder Scrolls Online and the story in Borderlands 2, and how ZeniMax and even Bethesda could learn a thing or two from the Borderlands 2 way of storytelling. Now, you may be thinking right now, how do the two games possibly compare? How can you compare Borderlands to Elder Scrolls? They're two different games, two different game types, and the universes have nothing to do with one another. Well, buckle your seatbelts and just hang in there. So, in Borderlands 2, and this is in particular the game I'm talking about, Borderlands also had good writing, but not at the level of Borderlands 2. So in Borderlands 2, you had Handsome Jack, and this, in my opinion, is one of the best villains to grace a video game in years. Whether you liked Handsome Jack, whether you hate Handsome Jack, it doesn't really matter. He has a great mixture of being an evil bastard and just being straight up hilarious. He usually does both at the same time. While he's doing something evil, I'm usually laughing. So, there's a lot of reasons to like him. Or a lot of people I know also just hate his guts and were more than happy to kill him at the end of Borderlands 2. But I digress. So, one of the major things that Borderlands 2 does right is, as you progress through the story, you continually are berated and you constantly have interactions with Jack, and you kind of build an emotional attachment, whether it's love or hate or anything in between. It's there. So by the time you get to the end of the game, by the time you sit down and you have that final showdown, you are kind of given a satisfactory conclusion. Jack is sitting there talking, you kind of have an idea of why he did everything he did, and you've had lots of time for character development with Jack. Now, in Elder Scrolls Online, you have a much more complex story. Namely, there's 3 different factions that you can potentially play through, and each of them have self-contained stories. There's different mini-villains per se, though the overarching villain is still the same for all 3 factions. So, when you get into Elder Scrolls, you go through the story, and at the end of every story arc, there's usually a final showdown of sorts with the big bad guy for that particular area. Now, one of the things that I noticed in particular as I've been playing through Elder Scrolls Online, and this isn't unique to Elder Scrolls Online, Elder Scrolls in general as a series has this problem. You're always fighting minions. You fight this guy's minions, and then you fight that guy's minions, and so on and so forth. Everybody's got minions in the Elder Scrolls universe. And you have very little to no direct contact with the actual villain by the time you actually have a face-off with him. So you basically go and kill all of his minions, you go to the boss chamber, and then you sit down, and you and him just have a straight-up duel to the death. And he might summon some dudes to help him out along the way, maybe some undead, which is very common in the Elder Scrolls universe. But otherwise, that's it. A lot of times, especially as I'm playing through Elder Scrolls Online, I've noticed they don't really have anything to say. Like, they're literally just an enemy. They aggro the same way as any other enemy in the game, and then you go and have a duel, and you kill them, and that's the end of it. There's no final cutscene, there's no monologue, there's no real interaction with them outside of that. They might have a few lines to say in the middle of combat, but it's never anything significant. It's like, you foiled my plans, or I'll get you and your little dog too. No, they don't actually say that, but you know what I mean. So, there's no real attachment to the bad guy. You kill him, and that's the end of it. You move on to the next quest. Now, a lot of people could say, well, there's scrolls and books and all this other stuff along the way. They're always talking about, this guy doing this and that. And your minions, his minions will say things, about him. And yeah, this is an indirect way of storytelling, but it doesn't give you the same sort of emotional attachment that you would get with someone like Handsome Jack. Now, I realize that you're not going to necessarily get the same thing because you don't have cell phones or any other communication devices in the Elder Scrolls universe where they can call you, but you do have spirit projections. They can literally, it seems like everybody can pretty much just project their spirit to somebody, and you can sit there and have a conversation even if they're not there. So it's technically the same thing as a cell phone. You're having a conversation with someone that's not there. So they could very easily have interactions with this person, and I would absolutely love to have multiple interactions with the bad guy instead of just going into a boss room at the end of a 4 or 5 hour long portion of the story and just having literally a like 5 minute duel to the death, and then moving on and never talking to him or referencing him or anything of the sort again. Like once they're dead, like that's the end of it. So really, Elder Scrolls can learn a thing or two from Borderlands 2. You just take the emotional attachment that Handsome Jack gives you, and you mix that into the Elder Scrolls universe, and now all of a sudden your storytelling is so much better. And that's really the spice that Elder Scrolls as a whole is missing, because going into just a boss room at the end of the game and just fighting the bad guy is really just not a satisfying conclusion. Especially personally, and this is a personal thing, you may completely disagree with me, but I like not necessarily a monologue, but I like to have a few moments with a bad guy here and there. Tell me why you're doing what you're doing, berate me, insult me, make fun of me, do things to mock me, and these are all things that a bad guy should be doing along the way. This further solidifies the hate that you should be feeling, the hate that the game tells you that you should be feeling, so that when you finally get into that boss room, you have a satisfying conclusion to the story. You actually have some legitimate attachment, whether you like a guy or hate him, and now it's time to have that duel, to get your revenge for the things he's done to you. And that's kind of where a lot of the problems stem from. Sometimes I don't really feel like I'm necessarily a part of the story. I feel like I'm just kind of along for the ride, because they don't ever really directly involve me in the world. Again, you have no interaction with the bad guy. And so you're just kind of there, and they're just like, hey, go kill this minion, go kill that minion, go get me this, go get me that. And this is a problem that all of the Elder Scrolls games, again, have. And in general, this is a problem that MMO games have. Very few MMO games really give you satisfying conclusions to the story. So, what could Elder Scrolls in general do to fix this? Well, as I've already said in this video, give us more interaction with the bad guy. Have him really just interact with the player as you're progressing through the campaign. Don't have him be some guy that we never actually get to see or have anything to do with until it's time to fight him in the boss room. This is kind of the mistake that I keep seeing being made over and over again, and it's how the entire game goes. Every single story arc thus far that I've been through has ended with me going into a boss room and killing the final dude, and there's no real personal time with the bad guy. You don't sit there and have a conversation with him. There's no cutscenes. It's literally just go in a room, fight a guy, get loot, move on. Some people might like this, but for me, I enjoy the story. And you know what? I actually wouldn't mind a cutscene of sorts. A lot of people don't like cutscenes, and I understand that. But if they're skippable, then that's fine. And this is one thing that I think Final Fantasy XIV did right. For major story parts, you got to have a cutscene and sit there and you got to kind of interact with the other characters indirectly. I mean, your character was there in the cutscene, things were happening around you, and, that was good on them. Now, Final Fantasy XIV has a slew of other issues, but they at least got that right, and that's something that Square Enix over the years, has had a lot of practice with. Now, if we can get that into our Elder Scrolls games and just MMOs in general that are developed in the West, then that'll go a long way towards making villains that you actually have an attachment to. Handsome Jack is a genius villain because he's just so damn good. He really just evokes so many emotions in the people that play the game, both love and hatred, and I really, really think that he's just one of those villains that we see once in a generation, and I mean a gaming generation, so every 10 years or so, because you just don't see villains that well written in too many video games that often. So anyway, I'll wrap this up here, and that's really all I wanted to say on the topic. I think that covers all of my thoughts on it, and hopefully you guys have some thoughts on it as well, whether you agree or disagree with me. You can let me know in the comments section below. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll be playing a lot more Elder Scrolls Online. Might have some more videos on it here pretty soon, so keep an eye out for those. I've been Striketh, and I'll see you guys next time.